David Noakes returns to the hot. Is that chair comfortable, David?
Oh yes, I'm quite happy.
We have a chair issue in this problem, in this place. It's an ongoing battle to find a good one. They collapse. They usually when a guest's sitting on it, which is invariably quite amusing. But it wouldn't be tonight. The EU Truth. You were essentially telling us before the news that, I suppose, for want of a better phrase, you're exposing what the EU is really about.
That's correct. The Lisbon Treaty is really very easy to understand if you read any kind of legal documents. Very simply, for example, Article 9 defines a three-tier Politburo dictatorship with a sham parliament with no power on the Soviet model. It's as plain as the nose on your face if you read Article 9. It's not difficult. Article 8A4 gives the EU the power to abolish our Lib Dem, Labour and Conservative parties. And Article 10A, along with countless others, makes it crystal clear that the EU is a military union. So there's nothing difficult about this. They keep saying in Parliament that it's a difficult treaty to read. Well, there are 6 treaties. You can read all of them, and I have.
Have you? Is there a danger that you've looked at this because you come from a specific direction on this and decided to sort of make it fit, that you've looked at it and thought, well, actually, you can interpret policies and laws in very many ways, and you've had a look at this and thought, this is the way I choose to see it, as distinct from how somebody else would choose to interpret it?
Well, I could take you through it line by line, and you would understand it. It's written in the language of subterfuge. For example, 8A4, political parties at the European level contribute to forming European political awareness and to expressing the will of the citizens of the Union. That's the doublespeak. What's the translation? Well, very simply, parties at the European level were defined as those with voters in more than 10 countries in the Madrid party financing document in July 1999. Well, of course, all our political parties have only got voters in one country, so they are illegal under the European Union. And given that all these treaties are interpreted by European judges whose remit is to enforce them in accordance with the expression ever closer union, they have the right to abolish our political parties, and it is as plain as the nose on your face if you read legal language.
But is any of this likely to actually happen, or are these just potentials or possibilities, or just fuddy-duddy aspects of legalese, if you like?
Well, no other nation in history has passed 120,000 regulations, for example, all of which are destructive and which are only aimed at Britain. When these are enforced, they will completely destroy small business, which is about 70% of business, and we're looking at millions unemployed. Now, they've only enforced about 10% of these 120,000 regulations so far, but when the EU takes over on the 1st of January next year, they can enforce the whole lot, and that will be devastating.
So why would they do that, though? Why would they enforce a regulation that's going to close our businesses?
The EU dictatorship cannot be built while there is a strong and freedom-loving Britain on its doorstep. We stopped them in 1914, we stopped them again in 1939. What most people don't realise is that Adolf Hitler founded the European Union as the European Economic Community in 1940. The first summit was in 1943 under von Ribbentrop. 13 nations attended. The first conference was at Berlin University in 1942, when all the normal policies were first expounded: a common currency, common transport policy, common coal and steel. The whole thing was set up by the Nazis. And in 1946, when you couldn't sell Nazism to anyone, they switched it from a Nazi basis to a communist basis, and it's been a communist basis ever since. And right now, they're planning to collapse our house prices because they don't believe in private ownership of property.
So you believe that's what that's all about, the reduction of house prices? It's not about market forces and somebody sneezed in the United States and the rest of us got a cold?
No, what happened, first of all, is they encouraged house prices to go through the roof, madly through the roof. They've gone up tenfold since 1990. And then what they're doing now is now there's a crunch and a recession. Instead of reducing interest rates, they're talking about putting interest rates up on the daft pretext that inflation is going up. Well, all the inflation that's happening is happening overseas. It's oil in Saudi Arabia, which is being artificially jacked up. It's rice in India that's going up. We can't affect those prices in England by putting up interest rates, but they're putting up interest rates anyway to force a catastrophic collapse in house prices.
So when we read today that actually people are still going mad in the high street and buying things, which is a sure sign that the Bank of England are likely to stick the rates up as a result of that, to try and cool that retail market down, that plays into exactly what you're just talking about.
Yes, it's a very helpful excuse for them.
Bob here in Heathrow says, here's a question. We've given quite a lot away as a government. Is there anything that could be done to force a change in this policy?
Given away what to who?
I assume he's referring to our powers have been given away to a centralised Europe.
OK, well, 80% of Westminster's powers have already been given to Europe in the last 5 treaties. Lisbon gives away the last 20%. So Westminster is completely powerless from the 1st of January onwards. Over the last 35 years, pro-EU people, about 30,000 of them, have been moved up into all positions of power in England. So that, for example, they managed to get this vote abolishing Britain in the in Parliament with the Lisbon Treaty, and the House of Lords passed it last night. So government is never going to oppose the EU because they are only in government because they are sympathisers. So government won't do it. There's lots of ways we can do it, and the first and most obvious and the only thing that will definitely stop the EU is a general strike.
So a general, which would be what? Every worker of every energy-based essential industry just putting tools down and coming out of work?
That's right. We all need to go on strike until these traitorous MPs either resign or strike out all 6 treaties as null and void. They shouldn't be repealed because they are all illegal under the British Constitution, which is written, by the way, every word of it. They need to be struck out as null and void.
But isn't it true within our own constitution that if a new party is elected in, they have the right, as a new party that's just been voted into power, to usurp and trump any previous agreement from another, from the previous government? So they could, if the Tories got in next time, as it looks as if they probably will, they could come along and actually say, although they probably won't, but they could, if they wanted to, say, actually, we think all of this is balderdash, we'll get rid of it and we'll start afresh.
Yes, up until the 31st of December this year, that is theoretically possible. And in fact, the only way that Parliament could be persuaded is for everyone to go and visit their MPs and warn them that when Westminster is abolished, probably on the 5th of May 2010, they will not only lose their £240,000 a year salary and expenses, but they will be eliminated politically.
Sorry, Europe will be abolished, did you say?
No, Westminster.
Westminster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, every dictatorship in history has eliminated those who put it in power, because if they put it in power, they can take it out of power. So they will eliminate all our MPs politically. Now, 100 years ago, they would have just chopped their heads off.
So but by 2010, there'll be no Westminster functioning as it does now?
Well, Westminster...
Not even in a pantomime sort of facade?
Westminster will become a full-time pantomime on the 1st of January next year, and I predict it will be abolished on the 5th of May 2010 when another general election is due. Because under the 6 EU constitutional treaties, there is no way of having a general election in Britain.
There's no way, no legal way, or could they still do it?
There's no legal way because the EU constitution takes primacy,
right?
Which is the EU's devious way of saying the British constitution is abolished.
Okay.
So therefore, there's nothing in the 6 treaties to enable a Westminster election.
Who's my Prime Minister? Who's my supreme leader then in that case?
Well, the only power that Gordon Brown will wield is as one of the 27 leaders of one of the 3 Politburos.